So today we're going to learn how to create a major chord with a descending bass. That's sometimes called an MCDB, and this is a really easy composer's trick, very common as well. All you need to know is the scale for the chord that you're going to pick. So I've picked a chord of A major, and I know that my A major scale is A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, and A. Now you can look up the scale for any chord on our website and that should help you out. Now I'm just going to go into Logic and I'm going to create a region on the piano right hand track I've created. To make this demo really obvious, I've got a right hand and a left hand track. So I'm going to take my pencil tool and I'm just going to create a 1 bar phrase. I'll zoom in a bit. A 1 bar phrase in the piano. So I'll go in there and I'm going to have my A major chord in there. So I'm going to have A. So press Command to get my pencil tool. C sharp and E. Now I'm just going to turn the velocity of them down a bit because they're sounding very loud at the moment. So if I highlight them to about there, that should work nicely, and go back to my pointer tool. I'm going to have a very simple rhythm in the piano part here on the right hand. So let's do this. I've just pressed the Alt key to copy there, and then I'm just going to have another 2 quarter notes. So I've created a quarter note, 8th note rest, an 8th note, and then 2 quarter notes to the chord of A major. And that, if I loop it round, would just sound like this. Which works, but could very quickly get very boring. So in the left hand, I'm going to create the descending bass. I've got the major chord here. I'm going to create the descending bass here. Now I'm going to make that longer. I've got a possible 8 notes in my major scale, so I'm going to create all 8 notes in this. So for that, I'm going to go to my pencil tool, create an 8 bar region this time, and I'm going to loop my major chord round for the whole 8 bars. So if I now go into the piano roll for that, I'm going to pick an A note that's noticeably lower than the one I had earlier, and for now I'm just going to put in whole notes for each bar. Now to make that a lot easier for myself, I'm going to zoom right out to see all 8 bars, and I'm going to make the velocity of these quite high so that it's easy for us to hear the difference on this demo. You'll want to be much more careful when you're actually composing with the velocity. So to put these notes in, I've put in my A major. I'm going to press Alt to copy, drag, and I've gone to a G sharp there because that's the next note down on my scale. So the next one's going to be an F sharp. So I'm going to click and drag until I get to an F sharp. Then I'm going to go for an E. Now I go back to my major scale. I'm going to go for a D, C sharp, B. So drag with Alt to get D, C sharp, and another Alt drag for B. And now, oh, wrong one. I'm going to go back to A because that's the first degree of the scale. But it's an A that's an octave lower than my first A. So let's have a listen to how that all sounds now. So I've got the major chord in the right hand and the descending bass in the left hand. And that's already much more interesting than just having the A chord played on its own with the same note in the bass every time. You don't always have to do the full 8 bars by any stretch. You can just use a very short fragment of this. One of my favourite tricks is to make it a 4 bar chord progression. So I'm going to delete that lot there. But I always like to miss out the G sharp, the 7th degree of the scale. So I've now got A, F sharp, E and D, and that just sounds like this. I'm going to loop it around so it sounds like this. And you can see you've already got something relatively interesting. You can play around with the rhythm of the bass line. So here, instead of having whole notes, I'm going to have dotted half notes followed by a quarter note. So that's an A quarter note, F sharp, E and D, and that would sound like this. To point out that the chord progression is coming round, you could always go back to your F sharp at the end. Maybe that would work better as a 7th, the G sharp. You could also have a run up at the end. So you can already see there's a lot of mileage in just this pattern itself. You can combine that with other chord progressions and very quickly build up a piece from there. So that was a major chord with a descending bass.